Hey everybody, welcome to Tuesday, and as promised, I'm talking about the whole NFT thing with Square Enix, the New Year's blog post of doom, the letter from the president. I don't know who's doing Square Enix's messaging. I don't know who approved that word salad. I think it's really inadvisable. Presidents of entertainment companies should never release jargony statements like this. This should stay as an investor statement, not not something that ends up on a news page of a website. But I haven't talked about NFTs. I hesitated talking about this because I read it initially about a week ago and went, "Are you fucking serious?" and moved on. But people keep seeing it. And I want to sort of talk generally about the whole NFT thing and why various companies are salivating over it. If you like this sort of thing, help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK. I know this is a bit late, this is a bit dated, but people as of the weekend were still sending me articles about it. So I'm like, all right, there's still interest in this. Like I said, companies are salivating themselves over NFTs, non-fungible tokens, which is interesting because the previous use of fungibility was when I did things about objectification theory. So the fact that the word fungible is now, and it means the same thing, to swap out for something else. A non-fungible token means you can't just use it as interchangeable with other things because of the blockchain and all that stuff. Now, some, I don't know what the word to use, but people who think NFTs are bullshit have already undermined the blockchain on certain NFTs simply by finding where the image is stored on the internet, circumventing the blockchain, and just distributing the core image for certain NFTs all over the place to make a point. And I get the debate that I've seen between, well, this means artists get paid, but the amount that some NFTs are going for is less about the quality of the art and more about the hype surrounding the art. Unfortunately, that is true of a great deal of expensive art. I think there are better ways for artists to get paid than NFTs. Now, I know I'm sort of preaching to the converted on this, preaching to the choir, because, this came up on Twitch like a week and a bit ago. And people, by the way, Twitch is tonight. I'm going to be streaming Far Cry 6 tonight. But I got my capture card working, yay. There's a general consensus, at least among, my most regular viewers, that NFTs are bullshit. But I think that this Square Enix letter from the president is an indication of exactly why NFTs are bullshit. And he's tipping the industry hat here as to why they're really interested in this blockchain digital assets thing. Now, I'll say it. Part of the reason I'm not a fan of NFTs is this sort of technology is very energy consuming. It is ridiculous that the paper a regular painting is painted on, if it's like, watercolor paper or something like that, is probably less bad for the environment right now than the sheer amount of energy that is required with these computations. That's how, ridiculous it is. Now, I have no problem with people with more money than brains being separated from their money. I don't care about that. If assholes want to go out there and drop money on stupid shit, to me, it's no different than, them buying this tech gadget that's going to be obsolete in 6 months, right? I think a lot of the stuff that people with a lot of money spend their money on is, Not exactly good for humanity. It doesn't have to be. People can spend their money any way they want. Here's my issue with the whole idea of NFTs, because the president of Square Enix is already tipping his hat that they want this stuff to be used to not pay artists in the future. And I should have set up this thing so that it looked a little better, but I've got it here. It's this paragraph here, down here, that after the blah, 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 legalese, I am not a fan of Square Enix. I don't like their business practices. Full disclosure, I played Final Fantasy VII Remake, but I'm not a fan of the company. I'm so sorry they have the Tomb Raider franchise, so on and so forth. Bias declared. But these two paragraphs, going on 3 about blockchain games, just tips the hat that eventually they're like, it's like what they tried to do with Beyond Good and Evil with the user-generated content that I think fell flat and is the reason that Beyond Good and Evil is delayed. I have no proof of that. It just, they did this big launch of, we're going to get all this content from the community. Easier said than done. I can talk more about that on Feedback Friday if you care, but let's stick on this blockchain gaming. Be they single player or online games have traditionally involved a unidirectional flow whereby creators such as ourselves provide a game to the consumers that play them. By contrast, blockchain games, which have emerged from their infancy and are at this very moment entering a growth phase, are built upon the premise of a token economy and therefore hold the potential to enable self-sustaining game growth. And all I keep thinking of is, this guy not aware of Ark Survival Evolved or games of that sort where the stuff in the game is user-generated? Anyway, the driver that most enables such self-sustaining game growth is diversity, both in how people engage with interactive content like games and in their motivations for doing so. Advances in token economies will likely add further momentum to this trend of diversification. And this is when I thought, Soulbound WoW weapons, dude. Like, this has all been done. But here we go. I see the play to earn concept that has people so excited as a prime example of this. I realize that some people who play to have fun and who currently form the majority of players have voiced their reservations toward these new trends, and understandably so. How did anyone who's the CEO of an entertainment company write that, and how did their PR people vet this? I'll say it again. Okay, listen, this is the sentence of doom. Okay, tangible detail. I realize that some people who play to have fun, in quotes, and who currently form the majority of players have voiced their reservations towards these new trends, and understandably so. However, he's knowingly about to piss off the majority of the player base and therefore his consumer base. Okay, the majority of people who give Square Enix money are about to get smoked, right? Oh boy. However, I believe that there will be a certain number of people whose motivation is to play to contribute, by which I mean to help make the game more exciting. Traditional gaming has offered no explicit incentive to this latter group of people, who were motivated strictly by such inconsistent personal feelings as goodwill and volunteer spirit. I'll repeat that. Traditional gaming has offered no explicit incentive to this latter group of people, who are motivated strictly by such inconsistent personal feelings as goodwill and volunteer spirit. Heaven forbid people want to engage in something that's fun and not a transaction. Heaven forbid. This is crazy talk. People need explicit incentives to run around as Cloud Strife. What? Okay, Final Fantasy VII Remake was boring as fuck in places. I'll give them that. But what? Continuing on. This fact that inconsistent personal feelings is goodwill and volunteer spirit. This fact is not unrelated to the limitations of existing user-generated content. User-generated content has been brought into being being solely because of individuals' desire for self-expression and not because of any explicit incentive existed to reward them for their creative efforts. I see this as one reason that there haven't been as many major game-changing content that were user-generated as one would expect. That is not only so wrong, but the whole individual desire for self-expression, goodwill, and volunteer spirit is the whole point of user-generated content. I mean, there's people I know who work as game devs right now who were modders, like back in the day, in like the early 2000s, who got their jobs because they made good mods. I mean, that's how a lot of Valve employees got their jobs. They loved gaming. They made stuff. That's why people do it. When you start financially incentivizing things in the way he's talking about, you go from social norms. This is from Dan Ariely's Predictably Irrational book, by the way. You go from social norms, which is friends doing favors for friends, into market norms. And anybody who's read this theory knows why this is a terrible idea, but more on that in a bit. I'll read this final bit. However, with advances in token economies, users will be provided with explicit incentives, thereby resulting not only in greater consistency in their motivation, but also creating a tangible upside to their creative efforts. I believe that this will lead to more people devoting themselves to such efforts and to greater possibilities of games growing in exciting ways. Now, we all know that paid mods is something that, you know, companies have experimented with. The thing about the blockchain is that there's no need for curation. And that's the problem. If you just have, you know, all this stuff out there, you get like what happens on YouTube. Perfectly decent content doesn't do well because doesn't do as well as some mediocre content with people who can afford to hire PR reps and get on an MCN. Right? It's not about the quality of content. It's more people watch your stuff if more people are already watching your stuff. It doesn't reward quality. It rewards hype. But I believe that this will lead to more people devoting themselves to such efforts and to greater possibilities of games growing in exciting ways. From having fun to earning to contributing, a wide variety of motivations will inspire people to engage with games and connect with one another. It is blockchain-based tokens that will enable this, blah, 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 blah. And then he goes, it is precisely this sort of ecosystem that lies at the heart of what I refer to as decentralized gaming, meaning we want to pay fewer people and just create this sort of free-for-all thing that we just basically work as an online bank, an online store for people to make their own stuff. So we minimize our risk, don't employ people with a living wage. We're just going to parasite off of other people's creativity. Period. End of story. That's what he's saying. Now, let me talk about the problem with this, because right now, user-generated content works on a particular model. And this is going to sound like a really strange comparative metaphor, but the same way that political systems drive the structure of campaigns, and you can't change a political system structurally, like we debate in Canada here, the first past the post, and it's still going to be first past the post, but like proportional representation, the way they have in places like Germany and I think Italy, Israel, but we just have, you win your riding, there's a seat. Government with the most seats forms government. Like the party with the most seats forms government. And some people want to change that because basically they don't like the outcomes of elections. Now, the thing is, anybody that knows anything about the way electoral politics works is you run your campaign based on the electoral system you're running in. So changing the political system, changing the structure of the system means that the way people campaign, the way people strategize will just change. You cannot get predictable outcomes. And what you are doing is taking gaming, which right now the thriving user-generated content communities of things like, even World of Warcraft, um, uh, you know, um, Minecraft, Ark, back in the day, City of Heroes. I mean, Second Life is, I think, the one that everybody thinks of when we talk about this metaverse concept. As if we need to give people fewer reasons to go outside. I'm not prepared to fully talk about the metaverse thing right now, but I'm more interested in people who want to go to actual space. But when you take something that is purely a social norms driven system and you violate the purity of the social norms by introducing market norms into it, you break the system. And what Dan Ariely found in his research, he's something called, I believe it's a behavioral economics, economist he calls himself. The book Predictably Irrational, I highly recommend, because what he talks about is the fact that the minute you get someone thinking about how much their labor is worth, how much their effort is worth as a business transaction, they actually want more for it and need more to be motivated than when it's just doing someone a favor in a gift economy. And this is really important because what it means is that people do less and want more with market norms than they do with social norms. Because with social norms, there's a trade-off of that goodwill and what was the thing he said was so very silly? Goodwill and volunteer spirit. It's that goodwill and volunteer spirit and individual desire for self-expression. The good feelings you get when you do a favor for a friend is social currency. And the experiments that Dan Ariely did in his book was he had people do like helping a friend move, for instance. And it was, I'm getting the examples wrong, but he used very small amounts of actual money, $5, $10, $20 increments, and then small gifts. So instead of $5, he'd give someone a candy bar. But in the candy bar scenario, it was, hey, can you do me a favor? Thanks a lot. I got you this. Whereas the $5 one was, hey, I'll pay you $5 to help me do this little menial task. And what he found is more people took the candy bar and felt better about it under the social norms model of, can you do me a favor, than the market norms model, because people like $5, I'm not doing anything for only $5, right? They start thinking about what their time is worth in a way they don't when it's a favor. Because when it's a favor, it's defined as a favor. And user-generated content is the same way. This is stuff people do for fun. People play video games to have fun. People play video games as a way that is an escape from work. And what Square Enix is saying is we're not interested in those consumers. We're interested in the consumers that want to treat video games as a job. And because, they probably play more hours and they've probably got a bunch of reasons why but the nice thing about people who are willing to make blockchain assets, token assets for relatively small amounts of money is it's cheaper for the company, especially in the short term, than hiring artists and tool builders, etc., etc. They are trying, it really looks like long term, they want to downsize their workforce, because what's the most expensive element of any game? Art assets. And this is why the industry is just salivating about NFT gaming. Because if people can go, hey, I have this thing, buy my thing, it costs them nothing to produce that thing. Somebody's doing it hoping to get paid in some sort of transaction. by other players. The company doesn't have to hire an artist and pay them for 2 years while they do this stuff. And this will cut the budget of even AA games, but definitely AAA games substantially. Especially, I mean, Square Enix is known for games that are but they're really pretty shiny, right? And I really don't think that user-generated content is gonna get the results they're looking for. But the other weird thing about that is you're gonna have to provide certain assets, but that means you just keep your tool designers employed, but the individual artists who use those tools and actually make the items, well, they're going to be out of jobs because they're going to rely on the community to do this. So that whole argument that NFTs mean artists get paid for their work is very short-sighted and doesn't fit with why companies like Square Enix are so very excited about this technology. They're like, we're gonna be able to fire people who are actually pretty expensive because, you know, a good artist can take their portfolio and apply for jobs elsewhere if they don't like the way they're being treated, right? I mean, or they stay because they're happy. But yeah, you need, you know, I think somebody said it was like 10 artists for one coder now in a AAA game. I mean, you know, for us, it's voices because with Song of Sparkle Muffin, but that's because we went for a deliberately cheap art style. But, you know, that how do we make our most expensive part of game dev cheaper is the only rational reason for this insane business memo that openly alienates what they identify as the majority of their player base. Because if their games cost a lot less, they can do it with a lot fewer players. And all those people who play to have fun will still buy our bloated, poorly managed, but very shiny games that are you know, remakes and retreads of franchises that used to be a lot better. Yes, I'm being super scathing, but you know, remember the video yesterday on insults versus criticism? There was detail in that. Because let's face it, Final Fantasy VII Remake is a remake. Tomb Raider, people are burned out on it because the games aren't nearly as good as, you know, Tomb Raider 1 and 2 by Core, even Tomb Raider 3, or those, you know, those first few Crystal Dynamics games. You know, they were all, before they got acquired by Squinix, they weren't as popular because it wasn't that open world thing. And, you know, they didn't nerf Lara's figure because feminism. You guys know I argue that. Ladybits dealt with that. But, you know, first game sold like crazy because there was mad hype. The second game sold okay, but wasn't very good. And even the first game was a Tomb Raider game with no tombs. The company that brought you Tomb Raider with no tombs now wants to do decentralized gaming, which is the same foobar that Kickstarter made last week. Was it last week? It's all blurring together. But when they said they wanted to decentralize crowdfunding and people were like, what the fuck are you on? These sorts of things need an element of curation. Because, you know, I say this as, you know, I'm involved in an indie music video project that people put their videos in and we curate them. We go through them, we watch them, we assemble them, and we present them in a way that's going to give them their best shot of picking up new fans. We don't just throw them into a void, you know, put them into an algorithm and randomly play them, because some of this stuff's pretty eclectic. And, you know, this one video that it's a guy rapping in Arabic. He's you know, in the Maritimes, but he's rapping in Arabic. And so I looked up the freaking lyrics that he was saying because I, first of all, wanted to know what he was saying, and I wasn't playing anything that I couldn't stand by. But also, you know, I wanted to contextualize. It's like opera. It's like the libretto, you know, the book and the opera. This is what happens. This is what's going on when everyone's singing and dying. here it is. And so people can look at it and understand what he's talking about. And even if they don't speak Arabic, this is just one example about how curation actually benefits artists. We need curation. Even though curation is often unfair, extremely elitist, and incredibly gatekeepy, we can work on the quality of curation while still recognizing that a certain quantity of curation is essential. There has to be somebody separating the wheat from the chaff, or it's very hard to find the good stuff. And that's been the issue with every online game store in existence. Steam, GOG, the Epic Game Store, so on and so forth. Anything online you need to solve the discoverability problem. And decentralized gaming creates a discoverability problem. It also means, time to penis is going to be legendary if Square Enix ever goes through with this. There's going to be so many dicks and boobies in with tokens because people are just going to see if they'll let it through. There's going to be every, metaphor of genitalia under the sun if they truly decentralize this stuff. You're probably laughing because you know I am right. Time to Penis came to me from a dev that was working on an all-ages game where they knew that people would try to put dicks in the game precisely because it was a children's game with user-generated content that was uploaded. And I said, what was the time to penis on that game? And they said about 9 minutes in a children's game. Good luck, Square Enix. Good luck. Retconning Final Fantasy VII cannot save you now. Oh, Schrodinger's Aerith, man. Schrodinger's Aerith. This is going to be kind of fun to watch because the first company to attempt this, we all saw Ubisoft's much less ambitious NFT related debacle. And Square Enix saw that and still went, hold my beer? All right, bring it. I'm looking forward to it. There'll be lulls. All right. Interesting to see what you guys think about this. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/LeannaK. Thanks for watching.